The Rapture Secret Hidden in Jesus' words. What he revealed without saying it out loud. Have you ever had a moment when a familiar Bible verse suddenly felt different, almost as if it lit up from within, carrying a meaning you never noticed before? That happens often with the words of Jesus. He spoke in such simple phrases, yet they carry layers upon layers of revelation, and when it comes to the rapture, something extraordinary happens. Jesus didn't just predict it. He hid a secret about it inside his teachings, not to confuse us, not to make the end times obscure or frightening, but to draw us closer, to cause us to lean in and listen with a heart that truly wants him. You see, the greatest mysteries of the kingdom were never meant to be uncovered by casual observers. They were spoken in such a way that only those who love him, who seek him, who hunger for truth, would understand. And if we look closely at his parables, his warnings, his conversations with the disciples, and even his silences, we begin to notice something astonishing. There is a consistent thread, a hidden pattern that points to one powerful, life-changing truth about the rapture that many believers overlook. It's not a date, it's not a sign, it's not a timeline, it's something far deeper. Jesus embedded this secret into his words because it determines who will be ready when he returns. He wasn't giving us mere information. He was shaping our preparation. He was showing us that the rapture is not just an event. It's the culmination of a lifestyle, the harvest of the heart, the moment when everything you have built spiritually will either shine or collapse. And the more you look at what Jesus said, the clearer it becomes that he wanted his followers in every generation, not just the last one, to live alert, awake, eager, and in love with him. In this message, we're going to uncover that hidden thread. We're going to step into Jesus' words, not as distant readers, but as disciples sitting at his feet, hearing him speak directly to us. Because I believe that once you see the secret he hid, it will change the way you prepare, the way you watch, and the way you walk with him from this day forward. Let's uncover it together. Part 1. The secret hidden in the pattern of Jesus' teaching. When you begin to carefully observe the way Jesus taught about his return, something remarkable emerges, a pattern that appears subtle at first, but becomes unmistakable the more you look at it. Jesus never approached the subject of the end times in a dry, informational manner. He didn't hand his disciples a timeline chart or a checklist of world events. Instead, he spoke through parables, warnings, comparisons, and symbolic images, each simple enough for a child to understand, yet deep enough for the spiritually hungry to keep digging for a lifetime. This is the first layer of the secret. The rapture is revealed not through a single sentence, but through a consistent pattern woven into Jesus' teachings. Every time he spoke about his return, he framed it in a story that contained two essential elements: surprise and separation. Think about it. The wise and foolish servants, the sheep and goats, the wheat and tares, the faithful and unfaithful steward, the virgins with oil and without oil. Over and over again, Jesus paints the picture of two groups, both appearing similar, both associated with him, both waiting in their own way, but only one group being ready. That is the hidden pattern. Jesus emphasizes readiness, not recognition. The people in his stories all believe the Master is coming. They just live differently based on how seriously they take that belief. That's the secret he's hinting at. Readiness is not what you say. It's what you are when nobody is watching. Jesus uses ordinary activities to teach extraordinary lessons. He points to servants waiting for a master, bridesmaids waiting for a bridegroom, workers waiting for an owner, and homeowners unaware of a thief. These images are diverse, but the message is the same. The timing of the return isn't the focus. The condition of the heart is, and that is revolutionary. Because many believers today want prophecy to give them comfort through details, dates, signs, charts, and predictions. But Jesus gives comfort in a completely different way. He says, "Stay close to me, walk with me, watch with me." The secret isn't about decoding his words. It's about allowing his words to decode you. Jesus never intended the rapture to be a puzzle solved by intellect. He wanted it to be a revelation received by those who cultivate intimacy with him. The ones who are awake, the ones whose spiritual senses remain sharp, the ones who refuse to drift with the world's tide. And when you study the Gospels through this lens, you realize something powerful. Jesus repeats the same pattern because he is not teaching information. He is shaping a mindset. He wants believers in every generation to live as if he could return at any moment. Not because of fear or uncertainty, but because love produces readiness. He wants your heart to be so aligned with him that his return feels like the natural conclusion of your walk. Not a shock, not a disruption, but a homecoming. This is the secret hidden in plain sight. The rapture is not for those who simply believe in it. It is for those who are being shaped by the one who promised it. And now we move deeper, because Jesus takes this pattern and intensifies it with his not yet, but soon warnings. Part 2. Jesus, not yet, but soon. Warnings reveal the tension before the rapture. One of the most overlooked aspects of Jesus' teaching is the strange tension he uses when speaking about the end times. He does something very intentional. He tells his followers that certain things must happen first, and yet he also tells them to live as if his return could happen at any moment. This is not contradiction. This is the second layer of the secret. Jesus wants us to live in the space between not yet and soon, because that space produces spiritual alertness. When the disciples asked Jesus about the signs of the end, they expected him to give them a clear sequence. Instead, his answer begins with something profoundly unexpected. Take heed that no one deceives you. Not wars, not earthquakes, not famine, not persecution. The first sign Jesus gives us is spiritual, not physical. He warns of deception, not destruction. Why? Because deception is the enemy of readiness. The world can be falling apart, and a believer can still be spiritually awake. But a believer can be drowning in comfort, distraction, busyness, or compromise, and miss everything. This is part of the secret Jesus hid. The biggest threat before the rapture is not what happens outside you, but what happens inside you. Jesus knew the human heart becomes dull when life feels normal. That's why he says the days before his return will mirror the days of Noah, not because of violence alone, but because of how ordinary life felt. People married, worked, ate, built, planned, and lived with no urgency. Nothing was wrong with their activities. The danger was the illusion of endless time. Jesus knew the world would move toward a deceptive calm, an atmosphere where people feel safe, comfortable, unthreatened. A world where spiritual urgency fades because nothing seems unusual. That is when he returns. But notice how Jesus holds these two truths together. He tells us not to be alarmed when certain things happen. The end is not yet. Then he tells us to watch, because his return will be sudden. The Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. This tension is deliberate. Jesus is training us to stay sharp in seasons that feel slow, to stay awake when the world is sleepy, to stay expectant even when nothing dramatic is happening. And this reveals something profound. Jesus didn't tell us to watch for signs. He told us to watch our hearts. The signs in the world are real, but the signs inside your spirit matter more. The world can shout with chaos or whisper with calm. Neither changes the truth of his return. What matters is whether your fire stays lit. This not yet, but soon rhythm is the heartbeat of Jesus' message about the end. He wants a church that doesn't collapse in crisis and doesn't fall asleep in comfort. The secret begins to take shape. The rapture is not about escaping a chaotic world. It's about being ready in a distracted one. And that brings us to the next layer, where Jesus uses parables to show us exactly what readiness looks like and what it doesn't. Part 3. the parables that quietly reveal the rapture divide. When Jesus wanted to show the difference between those who think they are ready and those who actually are, he didn't lecture, he told parables. And these parables weren't meant to entertain, they were meant to expose. Each one contains imagery that seems gentle on the surface, yet cuts deeply when you read it slowly and honestly. The first striking pattern is this. In every parable about his return, there are two groups, but they look the same until the moment of separation. This is the heart of the mystery. Take the parable of the 10 virgins. All 10 have lamps. All 10 are waiting for the bridegroom. All 10 fall asleep. Only 5 are taken in. 5 are left outside. No false religions. No unbelievers. No obvious rebellion. Just 2 groups who both believe. But only one group lives in a state of inner preparedness. That's Jesus' point. The divide is not between Christians and the world. The divide is within the church. The wise virgins represent believers whose inner fire continues to burn even in seasons of delay. Their relationship with Jesus is not built on emotion, trends, or convenience. It's sustained by oil, a picture of intimacy with the Spirit. It is that hidden, cultivated relationship that keeps them ready when the sudden moment arrives. The foolish virgins, on the other hand, have the appearance of readiness without the substance. They have lamps, symbols of faith, religion, activity, but no oil. They rely on yesterday's passion, old experiences, or the mere idea of being associated with the bridegroom. Jesus is revealing something many overlook. The rapture will not expose sinners. It will expose superficial believers. Then there's the parable of the faithful and unfaithful servant. Both servants work in the same house. Both call the same master Lord. Both expect him to return, but only one lives like his master could return at any moment. The other delays in his heart, saying, "My master is taking long," and begins living carelessly. Again, the pattern repeats. Same environment, same title, same belief, different inner life. Jesus is not describing dramatic rebellion. He's describing subtle drift. Another parable intensifies this message. The parable of the talents. One servant multiplies what he's given, while another buries it. The unfaithful servant isn't immoral. He's passive. He doesn't reject the master. He simply does nothing with what the master entrusted to him. That's the warning. Readiness is not just avoiding sin. Readiness is using what God gave you while you still have time. Jesus is showing us that the rapture will highlight something people rarely expect. The difference between activity and fruitfulness. A believer can be busy for God, visible, active in ministry, or consistent in routine, yet completely unprepared if their heart lacks abiding intimacy, obedience, and expectation. The parables collectively paint a single picture. Readiness is not proven by the noise of your life, but by the flame of your heart. And Jesus gives these parables because he knows the human soul tends to drift with distractions, with routine, with delay. So he embeds spiritual X-rays inside these stories. He wants you to check yourself, not with emotion, but with truth. Are you living with oil? Are you multiplying what he placed in you? Are you walking faithfully when no one sees? These parables don't just reveal the divide. They gently invite you to the right side of it. Now that Jesus has shown the what, he turns to the how, and he reveals one last secret. Before the rapture, the world enters a deceptive atmosphere of normal, and that quiet season will be the true test of readiness. Part 4. The world's final calm. The silent atmosphere before the rapture. Most people imagine the world before the rapture as loud, chaotic, and visibly apocalyptic. But Jesus describes something very different. He warns that the final stretch will feel strangely normal, almost calm. Not calm in the sense of moral purity, but calm in the sense of routine life moving forward without interruption. And this is where many believers will be caught off guard. Jesus compares the days of his return to the days of Noah and Lot, not because of their extreme wickedness, but because of their everyday ordinariness. People were eating, drinking, marrying, working, building, buying, planting, and selling. Life unfolded smoothly. Plans were made. The future looked predictable. No crisis, no urgency, no warning signs that felt threatening enough to wake them up. That's the silent danger. When everything feels normal, the human heart relaxes. Watchfulness becomes optional. Prayer becomes occasional. Hunger for God becomes replaced by convenience, comfort, and distraction. And this, according to Jesus, is the exact environment in which the sudden moment will strike. This calm is not peace. It's spiritual anesthesia. People will be living life, focused on personal plans, building futures, pursuing stability, entertainment, and comfort. Nothing is inherently sinful in these activities, but they create a world where spiritual alertness quietly dies. This is why Jesus emphasizes sleep so often in his parables. Not physical sleep, spiritual sleep, a numbness, a drift, a life lived on autoplay, a heart that no longer burns. The final calm before the rapture will deceive many because it convinces them there is more time. That's the real danger. Not sin, but delay. In that atmosphere, believers who once burned will begin to dim. Some will reach for the world's distractions to soothe their impatience. Others will rely on past devotion instead of fresh intimacy. Many will become spiritually drowsy while still looking outwardly Christian. Jesus knew this season would come, and he gave us a shocking truth. It is silence, not crisis, that will test the church the most. Silence exposes what pressure conceals. In crisis, people run to God. In silence, only the ones who truly love him remain close. This is the final test Jesus warned about. The test of quietness, routine, and delay. A generation living in normalcy right before the moment of separation. But Jesus did not reveal this to frighten us. He revealed it to prepare us, because those who live awake, even in silence, will not be shaken when the sudden moment arrives. And now, after unveiling the pattern, the tension, the parables, and the atmosphere, everything converges into a single truth. The rapture will come quietly, like a whisper heard only by the ones who remain awake. Part 5. The key hidden in Jesus' words. Awake, hearts. Hear what others miss. If you look closely at every moment Jesus spoke about his return, every parable, every warning, every comparison, there is one message beating underneath like a pulse. It's so simple that many overlook it, and yet so deep that it reveals the entire blueprint for rapture readiness. Here is the key. Stay awake, not physically, not emotionally, but spiritually, with a heart that remains alive, tender, attentive, and responsive to Jesus, even in the most silent seasons of life. This is the hidden theme in Jesus' words that unlocks the mystery of who will be taken and who will be left. The rapture is not about perfection. It's about wakefulness. When Jesus said, "Watch, therefore," he wasn't talking about staring at the sky. He was talking about guarding the flame within you. That Greek word for watch means to stay spiritually alert, to keep your inner fire burning, to resist the natural drift of the human heart. Because the greatest danger before the rapture is not deception, or persecution, or even sign. It's sleep. Sleep happens slowly, quietly, invisibly. Not because you rebel, but because you relax. Not because you turn away, but because you drift. You begin living more by sight than by faith, more by routine than by devotion, more by comfort than by calling. But Jesus gives the antidote. Stay awake. This awake condition is not about endless activity. It's not about pushing harder, doing more, or filling every moment. It's about maintaining a heart posture that says, Jesus, you matter more than anything else, even in silence, even in delay. Awake hearts stay anchored. Awake hearts stay obedient. Awake hearts stay filled with oil. Awake hearts listen when others shrug. Awake hearts respond when others postpone. Awake hearts recognize his whisper long before the shout. Jesus' words reveal that the ones taken in the rapture will be the ones who maintain this inner alertness. Not the smartest, not the busiest, not the most religious, simply the ones whose flame never died. This is why the wise virgins could enter. They kept their oil. They stayed awake on the inside, even when the world felt quiet, even when the bridegroom delayed. And because they stayed awake, they heard the midnight cry the moment it broke through the silence. The foolish virgins weren't wicked. They were simply unaware, unprepared. Their hearts had fallen asleep long before the door closed, and the rapture will reveal that same silent split. Jesus' words also reveal that being awake means being watchful over your choices, not in fear, but in alignment. Watching your heart so it doesn't get weighed down. Watching your priorities so you don't miss what matters most. Watching your love so it doesn't grow cold. Watching your soul so it doesn't settle into spiritual autopilot. To be awake means to live with Jesus at the center, even when the season is ordinary. This is the hidden key, simple but powerful enough to divide a generation. If you stay awake, the silence won't seduce you. The delay won't discourage you. The world's calm won't dull you. And when the sudden moment arrives, the moment that will happen in a breath, a blink, a heartbeat, you won't be caught off guard. You'll rise, because awake hearts recognize the voice calling them home, and everything Jesus ever taught about his return points to this truth. Those who remain awake will be ready, not because they predicted the moment, but because they lived in constant desire for the one who promised to return. You were not called to guess the timing. You were called to stay awake for the bridegroom, and that is the single key hidden in his words. Conclusion: the silent season is not a delay. It is your preparation. If you're listening to this right now, it is not an accident. You are living in the very season Jesus described. The season that feels calm, ordinary, predictable, almost too normal to sense the nearness of eternity. This is the final silent test, and the ones who will be ready are not the ones who know the most prophecy or watch the most signs, but those whose hearts remain awake when nothing around them seems urgent. Remember this: Jesus never asked you to be perfect. He asked you to be awake. That means living each day with a heart that seeks him, trusts him, listens to him, and returns to him again and again. It means choosing intimacy over habit, obedience over convenience, and devotion over delay. It means guarding your flame when the world tries to dim it, protecting your oil when culture tries to drain it, and keeping your eyes on Jesus even when others look away. When the rapture happens, it will not be the loud world that decides your readiness. It will be your silent choices. The choices you make when no one is watching, the prayers whispered in the quiet, the repentance that happens in private, the devotion that grows unseen. Those are the choices that shape an awake heart. And when Jesus calls his bride home, awake hearts will rise, not because they predicted anything, but because they walked with him closely enough to recognize his voice. Keep your oil. Keep your flame. Keep your watch. The silence is not a delay. It is Jesus giving you time to prepare, and when the sudden moment comes, the ones who stayed awake will see him face to face, just as he promised.